Yeah, so last week we pretty much, through the medium of your report, we pretty much looked at who are you now as a leader, or at least how do people experience you as a leader. And in doing that, we gave you a snapshot of what is it that people see when they, what is it they see in the way that you show up day to day. And this week, the question we're answering is so who do you want to be as a leader? Who do you want to be as a person? So where do you want to go from there? You've got a point in time, you got a snapshot, and where do you want to go from there? So don't worry if you didn't get your report yet. You'll still be able to come back to this recording afterwards and revisit. The principle still remains the same. Aoife, I'm going to rely on you in the background to let me know if the video starts to destroy the bandwidth on this, and I'll kill it.
You got it.
So in covering today, I want to do a little bit on self-awareness. I want to do a little bit on the body scan, and then I wanted to dive into the whole vision thing of where do you want to go on this program? Because it's one thing to come and say, yeah, I'd like to be a mindful leader, whatever that means. And I guarantee you, for every one of the 780 people who registered for the program, it means something different. So it's about focusing in, as we started last week, focusing in on what it is that you'd like to get out of this program, and making that a goal and intention, a focus. If you're listening to this on the playback, on the recording, please follow it exactly as if you were in the live session. And that means basically, when I use this version of the slide that I used last week about too many tabs, it means also, even if you're watching on the recording, please give yourself the gift of an hour invested just in you, without the interruption of the telephones or anything else that goes bing or bong or splat, or without anybody coming on top of you. So if you can, lock yourself away and get yourself some quiet time so you can just focus on this, because you are going to get the most out of this if you're just on this tab. I want to thank you, because the last 2 weeks we have had 84% engagement. It means that 16% of the time you guys were off the screen checking your emails and so on and so forth, and that's pretty darn good in these sort of sessions. So thank you for that. So what do we want to do next? Let's arrive. And I'm trying to create habits with you. I'm trying to suggest to you that you start creating habits. And one of the habits I'm going to suggest to you is when you arrive to work, when you arrive to a new task, when you arrive in home from work, when you arrive in work from home, and so on and so forth, that you take even a minute just to arrive. So we're going to take more than a minute. I'm going to invite you just to sit upright, and just put your feet flat on the ground, as we've done on the last couple of weeks, and bring your attention, just let your attention drop down to your feet on the ground. Now at this stage, you know that I don't mean look at your feet or imagine your feet or visualize your feet. I mean, just become aware of any sensations that tell you that your feet are on the floor. Is there hot? Is there cold? Is there a sense of gravity? What is it that allows you to know your feet are there? So just seek out what is there to feel, and just notice. And that's the big word of this program: noticing, paying attention. So for a few seconds, I'll start my clock here. For a few seconds, just allow yourself just to tune into that in the silence. How do I know my feet are on the ground? What sensations do I feel there? And this shouldn't be effortful. This should be just opening up and allowing yourself to notice those sensations that are always there. And as we're doing that, just expand the range of attention up to your feet, up to your seat, so that now you're paying attention to your sit bones and your legs, and where you're sitting on the chair, and your feet. Again, how do you know you're sitting in this chair? What sensations tell you? And again, I'll just go quiet for 30 seconds or so and let you just drink that in. So as you kind of maintain a soft attention to your seat and your feet, let me suggest that if you're in an office where it's open and it's uncomfortable to close your eyes, that you just allow your eyes to fall down so that your focus is about 3 or 4 feet in front of you, down towards the ground. Soft focus, just relaxed, letting your eyes just relax. If you can close your eyes, close your eyes. If you're an experienced meditator, do whatever works for you normally. And now let's just settle our attention really gently onto our breath. Noticing the breath as it goes in through the nose, down into the lungs, expanding the chest, expanding the abdomen. For a beat, just stopped, and then back out again. Abdomen, chest collapsing. The breath exiting again through the nose or the mouth, a little bit warmer than before. Can you remember what we said? You're just going to try and pay attention to the breath all the way in on a cycle and all the way out on a cycle. And if you lose attention, don't become frustrated. Just, I'm distracted. And return your attention to the breath. And this shouldn't be effortful. Just watch the breath as opposed to strangling it. So just spend a couple of minutes there just observing the breath, paying a light attention to the breath as it goes in and out. And now, before we come to the last couple of breaths of this exercise, just invite you to set an intention for what you want to do in this session for the next 40, 50 minutes. If you're starting your day or finishing your day, what you want to do with the rest of your day or the rest of your evening. And just set an intention, make a decision. This is the way I'd like it to go. Not a goal, just a general direction. And on your next breath, just let it out slowly, blink, stretch, whatever, and welcome back. So let's carry on. So, as I say, this week is really the first week when we start to bring things together and start to make some connections for you. And next week you'll see more connections being made, and it's going to get very exciting at this stage. It's going to become very practical. It's going to get to the stage where if you are engaging with this program as an academic exercise, you're going to start to get a decline in the return you get on it. But if you're engaging with it as something that's designed to create habits and to create a daily or frequent practice, you're going to find you get more and more out of that. So let's move on. So last week's homework, you have, as you know, on front of you, a hands-up facility. This is not an audit. This is not teacher checking in on you. I just want to get a sense of who actually did anything last week, just in terms of numbers. I'm not going to be calling anybody out. So tell me, show me a hand if, for example, sorry, I beg your pardon. You can put your hands down. First, I want to thank Aoife. She's still working on getting 780 reports with probably 4 to 5, 7, 35. So about 2,500 to 3,500 responses in those reports. So a big shout out to Aoife, but a big shout out to you guys as well, because I know some of you have had to remind your raters to get their piece done, and thank you for that. If you haven't had your report yet, Aoife will be working on it. If you think it should already be there, you think it's finished and you haven't had it, Aoife's ready to hear from you and you know how to contact her. So now let's get to the hands piece. Did anybody get to journal their leadership vision? Just show me some hands there. If you took some time to do that, it is I am. Okay, good. Okay, super. Good for you. You saw with Regina Pally last week, that lady who wrote the book, The Predictive Brain. She said that, you know, when you set an intention, when you set a direction, when you set a vision, that you set a whole train of action, of events in action that get your brain trying to make the circumstances come to pass. That vision becomes real. So good for you. If you haven't, you can continue to do this, and I would encourage you to do it every so often and go back to it again. Keep the journaling notes that you have and go back and review it and then do it again. What about, did anybody download the Potential Project app, the 199 app, and do anything with the purposeful pause? I would really, in the interest of keeping these sessions to just 60 minutes, yeah, great. So a good few of you. In the interest of keeping these to 60 seconds, I can't call out and say, what was your experience? But I'd really love to hear that on the LinkedIn group. So what was it like? What impact did it have upon you? How did it impact your day? And you can throw that up on the chat with Aoife as well if you like to. Who experimented with the body scan? Okay, so not as many. Oh, okay, they're going up now. Yeah. So again, I encouraged you last week to try it. I'm going to a good few going up. I'm going to encourage you next week really to try that, and I'm going to give you reasons in today's session why you want to do that. What about the rituals? We spoke about maybe paying attention to when you were brushing your teeth, shaving, and in fact, we didn't speak about making your coffee. Okay, good bunch of people again. Because when you bring attention to routines that are part of your day anyway, like brushing your teeth, you get the same value from them as you do quiet time sitting on a mat, quiet time sitting and focused on the breath. And it just gets that attention muscle, that presence muscle exercise. If it's not already posted there, and I've been traveling so I don't know, Aoife is about to post the interview with Laurie Cameron, who is we did an interview with her last week. She's the author of the Mindful Day. And she talks about how even making and drinking your coffee in the morning can be a meditation. So check that out. It's really worth looking at. But here's the key thing I'm going to say to you. By the end of today's session, you're going to have seven practices. Yeah, recordings for 7 practices, a handout for 7 practices. And you're not going to be using all of those all the time. Some of them, for you at a particular point in time, are going to be better than others. And that's why I put them into that sort of Lego block sort of assembly, because I'll show you towards the end of the program how to figure out which ones do I need at this point in time, which ones are most useful, so that you're getting the ones that make the best use of your time and meet you where you are right now. So you need to be experimenting with these. You need to be trying the attention to the breath, the open awareness we're going to look at next week, the body scan and all those things, and just giving them a go and seeing which works for me, which resonates with me. So where we're going on the program, you saw this last week. This really is a program about becoming a better leader, whatever that means to you. And you may not have nobody reporting to you. You may be a coach, you may be a consultant trainer, and you have to lead and you have to inspire your clients. And we want you to be able to increase your performance and that of the people around you, become a better leader without hurting your health and at the same time improving your well-being. We're using mindfulness and neuroscience to help you develop a set of emotional skills, emotional intelligence skills. And we're doing that through the lens of the Genos model. So we're looking at the ability, the emotional intelligence ability to inspire performance, be self-aware, aware of others, manage difficult emotions, reason with emotions effectively, and be authentic. And we've spoken about these in former weeks. We're going to dive deep on all of these over time. Here's where today's focus is mainly going to be around your leadership vision, inspiring performance, and around self-awareness. So this really, I think this is one of the most important pivotal sessions, because it's the point at which you decide, do I think there is enough in this for me to invest a couple of minutes a day, which is what I'm going to be suggesting to you. And only you can make that call. When Aoife was doing some research last week and she came across this quotation, I said to her, God, we have got to have that somewhere in every one of our sessions every week from Meryl Streep. She said, I want to feel my life while I'm in it. That is exactly what we're talking about. And that's exactly what none of us are doing perfectly. You saw that Harvard Business Review statistic that said globally, people spend 47% of their time mind wandering, worrying or catastrophizing about what might happen, and worrying about what's happened already in the past, instead of being right here, feeling their life when they're in it. So that's what we're about. It really is about inhabiting your life as many of the present moments as you can at a time, because every single percentage of presence that you pull back is a percentage when you feel your life while you're in it. So to that end, here's where we're going now. We've already spoken somewhat about self-awareness. And the key thing I want you to remember is self-awareness, which is the ability to be aware of one's own emotions and moods and feelings and the way they're impacting the things you're saying, the way you're thinking, and the way you're showing up. So having that awareness of how emotions are affecting you is self-awareness. And one of the things I want to share with you is, which I think is really, really important, is self-awareness is hugely important in self-confidence. And self-confidence is hugely correlated with success in general. Now, self-confidence doesn't have to be brashness. In fact, the sort of self-confidence we're talking about is not big-headedness. It's not being big, Mr. Large, as my mom would say. It's really much more about feeling that whatever situation I go into, I'll be okay. No matter what happens, I'll be okay. And the only way you can know that you'll be okay in every situation is if you know yourself well enough to be able to predict what that looks like. Here's what the big man, Dan Goleman, the daddy of emotional intelligence, said. He said that self-awareness is knowing one's internal states. So, how am I feeling right now? Our preferences. What do you tend to prefer? What are your internal normal biases? What do you like, what you dislike, and so on? Your resources, in other words, your strengths, and your intuitions. And what does your gut tell you? And in a later session, I'm going to show you through research that what we talk about as wisdom and intuition actually has a physiological basis in the brain, in a certain part of the brain. But that's another day's work. So we want to learn to know our internal states, know our preferences, know our research and our intuitions. And that's what is highly correlated with self-confidence, which is highly correlated with success in general. The first component of self-confidence is accurate self-assessment. Being able to look at what are my preferences? What is it that turns me on, turns me off, I like, I dislike? What am I strong at? And if you like, on the other side of things, what am I not so strong at? Because it's just as important to be aware of those areas where you're not terribly strong, because then you're going into a situation that's going to be challenging for you, So you know to prepare, and you know to have somebody with you who is strong in that, where they have resources that you don't have. So the first one is accurate self-assessment. The second one, looking at the internal states and the intuitions, is emotional awareness. If emotions affect us the way we saw that they affect us so dramatically when we did the neuroscience piece, where we can be flipped into the reward state and everything is great and we're creative and we're positive and everything looks wonderful, or we can be tripped into the threat state and everything looks grim and tough and we're completely uncreative and so on. So if that's the case, well then we have to know what's going on inside us and be aware of those emotions, be aware of our internal states and intuitions to become more self-confident in ourselves. So let's look at what we're doing in this program for the self-assessment. You've already started. If you have your report there in front of you, I would say open it up and look at the self-awareness section and look at those two scores. Over time, you'll get looking at all of them. And I hope at this stage you used one of the recordings, the second recording, yes, to walk through your report. But to what extent do others perceive that you're aware of your strengths and limitations? To what extent do others notice you asking for feedback on how you approach things? And when you compare how they see you, how do you see you, and how does that compare, and what does that tell you? Because all of this process of just learning a little bit at a time is opening up your awareness. There's a German school of psychology called Gestalt. The coaches who are on this call will be familiar with it. And they have a fabulous 3-word expression that says it all. They say, awareness is curative. Just knowing something starts to improve it. So just having an awareness of your limitations already moves you towards shoring yourself up against them. Being aware of your strengths makes them stronger. Being aware of the need to ask for feedback so that you know your strengths and your weaknesses is curative. It starts already to change the whole picture. So look at, what are your results telling you there? But what we're focused on in this session today, or session last week, was really around emotional awareness. And emotional awareness is really just demonstrating awareness of your mood and emotions. Do you remember that was one of the items from this survey that we used in the good boss, bad boss exercise, in the EI experience exercise? And having that and being seen to have that awareness of your mood and emotions and how they're causing you to think and feel and show up is a critical thing. What do your results tell you under self-awareness about how others perceive your awareness of your mood and emotions? What do your results on that tell you? So let's look at, how do you develop a greater emotional awareness? How do you go about actually enhancing that? Well, remember what we said on day 1. In the first session of this, we said, for the purpose of this program, we are defining emotions as physiological sensations that arise in the body in response to an external stimulus. Somebody says, Deiric, I hate you. The first thing that happens in your body is a gut reaction. And in fact, very literally a gut reaction. Very frequently, people will feel those visceral, those in the gut reactions, literally down around the stomach area. And then that reaction is communicated to the brain, and the brain says, oh, I don't like him, or, oh, I'm feeling sad, or, oh, I'm feeling angry, whatever it is. By the time it gets to the brain, that emotion is old and maybe past, okay? So what we want to do is notice those emotions as they're arising as physiological sensations. Become more tuned into what's going on in the body, so that when things change around us, when we think something that changes the way we're thinking, and changes our emotional state. When somebody says something that changes their emotional state, that we become aware of it. And awareness is curative. If we know the emotions that are rising in us, we can make a decision what we want to do about them. Remember this, I played with you a little bit and I said, which one of these moves the other? And the point I was making is, where you are as an emotional being experiencing emotions, there are always bodily sensations. And they are easier to monitor than the emotions, which at the end of the day, you know, and the moods and the feelings are really psychological labels that we put on things. So we really need to be tuning into those body sensations. Now, if we were in a live class, I'd be saying to you, what's the difference between these two pictures? We're not, and we don't have the time to do it, so let me tell you. The one on the left, obviously, it's actually of the same butterfly on the same flower. But it's like something that might have been taken with the first phone camera that I had 10 years ago. I don't know how many pixels it had in it, but it was pretty rough. But when we got those on day 1, we said, oh man, look at this fabulous picture of a butterfly. And it's in my phone, and I can carry it anywhere, and I never have to print it, and I can show it and share it and so on. And even though it was a pretty crappy picture, you move on to today, and I don't know how many megapixels, I think it's 12 megapixels are in the phone I have right now. And all that's in there are extra little dots, extra little pieces of data, and suddenly I have a much better picture of what's going on around me. Emotions are just like that. The more you notice your emotions rising in you, the more pieces of data you have, and the greater your emotional resolution, the greater your awareness of your emotions and how they're impacting you. And that's why we spend so much time in this program looking at, how do I observe my emotions as they rise in sensations in the body. Here was a statistic I shared a few weeks ago. And here's one source of emotional reaction, our thoughts. Now, the science around thoughts and measuring the number of thoughts that people have is pretty flaky. This is about the best study I could find, but it's by no means perfect. There's another one that said that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, but this at least had some rigor, some kind of structure in it. So this researcher said, and by the way, there'll be a link to this, and we'll put up a link for you, Aoife, if you can remember to remind me to put that link up. And they found that about 50% of them are positive. So put it in perspective, you have about 5 negative thoughts a minute. And those thoughts all evoke some emotional reaction. Now, most of them you don't notice. They go on underneath the surface. So a thought comes into the back of your mind and it causes an emotional reaction. And with a lot of them, you don't notice. But sometimes you're sitting with loved ones and you're having a joyful experience and suddenly your mood falls off a cliff. What's going on there? Probably emotions that you haven't noticed in the background being triggered by whatever. Thoughts is one source. External stimuli like other people, like situations, like the news around you, etc. We respond emotionally, physiologically to everything that touches us, and that affects our mood. And that's why we have to tune in using the body scan. Now, the body scan is really just about developing a capability you already have. As we're sitting here, allow your attention. It sounds silly. It is silly. Allow your attention to drop down to the big toe on your left foot. Just see if you can feel any sensations on the big toe of your left foot, and you can move it if you like. Just allow yourself to see, can I reach out and feel that? And in all likelihood, you could. Same with your fingertips and so on. You're able to do this. It's a natural capability that we've lost touch with. The body scan merely makes it habitual to watch what's going on in your body. So first time you do the body scan, it's work. Second time's a little bit less work. The 100th time, it's now getting to a stage where you kind of have a sense of what the default for your body is. So that when an emotion comes along and upsets that equilibrium, you notice. And in noticing, you can start to notice patterns. Oh, when I meet this person, I get this reaction. When I meet my grandson, I have a 15-year-old grandson. When I see him, I get this fabulous reaction, this fabulous warmth of my stomach, my heart swells up, all of that sort of stuff. So noticing what's going on is critical. That's why we did the body scan last week. That's why I'm going to encourage you next week to do the body scan, because the body scan is going to be at the core of emotional resolution, self-awareness, knowing what's going on with you, and in 2 or 3 weeks' time, resilience and dealing with stress and dealing with difficult emotions, self-management, as we call it in the report. So that's why we did the body scan last week, and that's why I'm going to encourage you this week to do more of it. It is a critical tool in what we're doing, and you're going to see it weave in and out of some of the other techniques we use over the next several weeks. So here it is. That is it as it appears in your handout. You remember the way it went? It went from your toe up to your feet, up to your ankles, up to your lower legs, and then eventually you were just noticing what's going on in the body. Well, first I'm showing you how to do it. In a week or two, I'm going to show you how do you make use of that information. How, when you notice a sensation arising in reaction to a stimulus, what do you do? Okay, particularly if it's not one you want. So that's what that's all about. And it's really important that you start to get some practice around this, because this is more than anything else about developing practices. It's not about an academic set of skills. It's about what would I call it? Practical set of skills. Let me give you a last piece of research. David Genos is a great writer in the New York Times. And he wrote about a study that was finished at the end of last year, I think it was, and it was a very significant, scientifically verified study published in a scientific journal. It was what they call a longitudinal study. It means that they studied people, followed people through their lives, through the study over a couple of years. And guess what they followed? People in one of the most unforgiving professions on Wall Street, people who are high-frequency traders. Typically, they last 2-3 years, and then they get burnt out. High stress business where they're dealing with lots of buy-sell decisions all the time, high stress, high pressure, high speed. And they took 2 groups of these. One of them, two groups of high-frequency traders doing the same job. One of them, they did nothing with them. The other one, they taught them how to body scan, how to notice emotions arising in their gut, and how to use that as data. Now, they didn't go, let me see what my gut is telling me I should buy. Yeah, buy IBM today. It's not mystical. What they were doing was tuning in to some of that wisdom, some of that natural wisdom where your brain has encoded experiences in the past and can communicate back with you through gut feelings as to whether something is a good or bad decision. A little bit of extra data, a little bit more resolution. And look what happened. We're going to give you the connection both to the New York Times article, which I prefer. It's The Idiot's Guide. And you know what I mean. And we'll give you a link also to the actual study itself in case you're that sort of person who loves that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is this stuff is really, really practically powerful. It gives you a lot of information you can't get otherwise. So that's enough about emotional resolution. Again, we've done a lot of talking. I've said this is a practical program. Now let's dive into the practical. And let's move completely to a different place. We've been talking about self-awareness. Now we're going to go to the other end of the schedule, or the other end of the scale, down to inspiring performance. And at the core of inspiring performance, you want to inspire others. You have to help them understand the purpose, the contribution they make to the organization, and make the work meaningful for them. And the only way you can know what makes it meaningful for others is to figure out what's meaningful for you. When you figure out how to create a vision that inspires you, that makes your work meaningful, gives it purpose, gives it meaning, well then it's only then that you're likely to be able to inspire others in that direction as well. So that's why we started with the it is, I am exercise last week. And I said, please journal it multiple times and try to get a picture of 1, 3, or 5 years' time. And let me show you how I'd like you to use that picture. And I'm going to do it by reference to somebody iconic and somebody who latterly got a bad press. But listen, let me not talk about him. In fact, I need to release this for a moment because, hang on, I need to kill my screen for a moment. 1 second. And because I need to share my sound with you. So let me share the screen and share the computer sound. And if you can let me know just that the sound is playing after that experience this morning. So here we go. So let's see. Can we get this 2-minute piece of video playing for you?
For the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything. You thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes.
Wow, it really doesn't matter, I think, how many times I see that. It doesn't matter that I've read that the man could be quite unpleasant at times, but it just gets me every time. And let me just ask you, I got the participants there. Can I have a show of hands? I'm sure many of you have heard it before, but did that speak to you? Did that really sort of touch you a little bit? Yeah, hands are flying up. Yeah, there is something, as he says, and I love, he puts two things in there really important. He says, knowing you're going to die helps you avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose and realizing that there is no reason not to follow your heart. And creating a vision of who you want to be, where you want to be, who you want to be, to whom, and all that is a powerful thing to do. This is not your first rodeo. You've heard that before. Other people have said it to you, you've read it. Other people have said to you as well to do what Job said he did. He said every morning he looked in the mirror and he said, is this what I want to be doing with my life today? And if it's when the answer has been no for too many days, well, then I start considering what I'm going to do next. So one of the best pieces of advice ever given, once you have a vision, once you have a direction, once you've set an intention for who you want to be in your life as a leader, whatever, is to revisit that daily. But that's not easy, because for the first few days, of course, we go back and we revisit our journal and we read it, but then we get busy and it's no longer new and it's no longer fresh. So I want to share with you a practice that is going to allow you to integrate bringing that vision into your life in a real way on a very, very frequent basis, as often as you meditate, in fact. So let me take you to...
Deiric.
Yes.
Just really quick before you get started there's a really bright light coming. I know you are an angel, but I don't think you mean to have a halo here.
Keep coming. One moment, please.
Just because the folks have asked, they love seeing your face. So I figured you'd want to know.
I'm going to see it when this is closed, but we'll give it a go anyway.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, folks. I didn't realize that I was doing St. Deiric of London impersonation there. So let's do a practice, and rather than talk about it, we'll debrief it afterwards. So this is for me a powerful practice. It's going to take up about half of the time that we have left, and this is one of the ways that this program can really make a difference to you. Just adopting this practice and making it part of what you do. So again, let's start as we often do. Let's sit upright, not stiff. And before we do anything else, just notice if there's any tension, if you're holding your shoulders high, clenching your jaw, if you've got your little crow's feet made because you're squinting your eyes. If there's any part of you is a little bit tight, just let it loosen. Let it soften. Let it relax. Just let it all go. If, like me, you're sucking your gut in, nobody's looking. Let it go. So just relax. Put your hands symmetrical, maybe on your lap. And just as we're sitting here, just begin to take those breaths that we've spoken about in former weeks. Just a little bit slowly. In your mind, counting how long is the in breath. So it might be 1, 2, 3. And then on the out breath, making an effort just to slow it down so that's as long as possible, so that it's up to twice as long on the way out. So if you're breathing in 4, you're breathing out 4. So just take a few of those on your own there, quietly. I'll time you by doing it myself. And as you're carrying on with those few breaths, just allow your attention just to settle down in your seat and your feet. So feel yourself get heavier down into your seat and feet, really just relaxing down into it and being aware of any sensations in the seat and feet, just as you finish those last one or two breaths. So now let's connect with your intention for yourself in doing this practice. The general intention is to visualize a time when the vision you created of yourself as the leader you plan to become has come to pass. And the intention is, while sitting with a relaxed and open mind, to allow yourself just to examine that direction, that goal, that vision, and to reinforce your intentions for this day, this week, and over the next 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. So the intention is really just to gently reorient your attention to your longer term intentions. But just set whatever intention is meaningful to you for this practice right now, today. So if it's possible and comfortable for you, you may close your eyes. And if not, just allow your gaze to fall 3-4 feet in front of you, a meter or so in front of you, and with a soft focus. And let your attention land really lightly on your breath. You don't want to change it, you don't want to manage it, you just want to observe it. And just notice it going in through the nose, maybe cool at your nostrils, inflating your chest and your abdomen, reversing the process as it goes out. And it doesn't matter where you pay attention to the breath, wherever is most noticeable for you, just rest the attention there. Tip of your nose, your abdomen, your chest. And just breathing in, breathing out, and paying attention to the breath. Sometimes it can help to separate the breaths into individual cycles. Just paying attention to this breath going in, and then to this breath going out. And then to the next breath coming in. And if you notice your attention wander, it's okay. Just notice, oh, distracted. Bring your attention back as many times as you need to. As soon as you notice your attention has wandered, exercise is working, you become a little bit more self-aware. So just cycle through that for a minute or two. Over time, you're developing the practice of the breath being a kind of a home base or an anchor for your awareness. So that when thoughts come and thoughts go, you don't feel the need to push them away. You don't feel the need to follow them. You just notice if the attention wanders and you simply return. Right here and right now, just this breath going in, just this breath going out. So now let your attention to the breath lift and bring it instead to the vision you started working on of yourself 1 or 3 or 5 years in the future. We spoke about a vision of yourself as a mindful leader, but when you did the it is, I am, you may have done something slightly different. So I want you to imagine that everything that could possibly have gone right with that vision has gone right. And you're at that point in time in the future when you have a successful outcome for the goal. When is that? What date did you set? What are you doing right now? And how do you feel having achieved the goal? What does it mean to you and your loved ones? So for a moment or two, just inhabit that feeling of, this all worked out. I got the success I was looking for. Experience it, see it, feel it completely. Just pay attention to it. It is, and I am. So now allow your mind to track backwards from that day when you've had that successful outcome, almost like a movie where it's going backwards to the days of the calendar, passing through all of the days and all of the actions that got you there over those years, all the way back to today. And recognize that what you do today, tomorrow, or this week can, if you have the intention, move you along that path towards that vision. What we do in the present has great power. So now, allow to arise in your mind what you should, or what you visualize yourself doing before the end of this day or this week or this month that keeps you on track to that desired future. And put yourself into that time when you're doing that, whether it's today or next week or next month, where you're taking the next step that's moving you closer to that vision. How does that feel? Rehearse taking that action in your mind for a few moments. And as you rehearse taking that action, know that it moves you to the next action, and the next one, and the next one. And that when the time comes, you know how to take the next step, because your predictive brain has a good vision to work with. So now take a deep breath, and as you release it, slowly bring your attention out of the future and back to this present moment, and just settling it again really gently on your breath. Just noticing. Your attention to the breath should be like a butterfly landing on your arm. It hardly affects it, but it's still there. It's just paying attention, allowing the breath to do what it needs to do, and following it in and out. Just sit with that for a moment. And as you're doing this, if you're finding this is a lot of effort, well then ease back on the effort. Make it as effortless as you can. Just let the breath do all of the work, and just notice the breath and indeed the body. So take a last breath. As you exhale, just open your eyes. You may stretch and look around or whatever, and we carry on. So what you've done just now, if you choose to create a practice like I'm talking about, and you choose to create a mindfulness practice where you're working on your focus, and you're going to, over time, you're going to learn practices to help you work on your resilience and work on your peace of mind, and even work on your sleep with the body scan. Well, then you're creating a structure within which you can inject that ability to bring your attention to that vision once or twice a week, once or twice a month, whatever works for you. But you can set it up so that as I'm doing my practice, when I'm relaxed, when I'm in the best, most open frame of mind that I can be, I'm going to bring my attention to that and reinforce it. And it will change over time. It will move and it will evolve because you visit with it. Now, here again, I just want to show you, here's the stacking I was talking about. You started with 6 breaths and seat and feet, the very first practice we did. Then we went on and we set an intention. You spent some time anchoring to the breath. And then we added on visualizing the vision. So I want you just to notice, and we'll share more of these as we go, that you can construct these practices together to suit whatever you need. You don't have to be bending yourself out of shape, doing things that don't work for you. What we'll do is we'll get you experimenting so that you get the ones that really work well for you. So this is a great one for clarifying your vision, continually reinforcing your intention to become the leader you said you wanted to be. And here we go. Building your optimism and hope. Tremendous. Looking forward to a hopeful future is a fantastic thing. And removing a key source of anxiety for people, the future. I love this expression. I can't remember who I stole it from, but it said, you know, you need to make your aspirations speak louder than your fears. Okay, it's really a question. Don't look down. So we're about a couple of minutes away from the top of the hour. That's the core content I wanted to visit. Before I go into the homework, I just want to bring Eva on in case there's any housekeeping she just wants to talk about. And while she's switching on her video there, let me draw your attention to the fact that you are now a community of 339 people. So congratulations. And it'll be great, honestly, to see some of you sharing a little bit more of how's this going for you. You tend to write it to her, myself and Eva. I really appreciate that, but it'll be much more powerful shared with everybody. Sorry, Eva, off you go.
That's exactly what I was going to cover, Derek.
Darn, I'm sorry.
No. That's all good. All good. I have a few comments, though, I could share back before we get to questions. Or do you have anything else you want to go through?
I just want to do 2 minutes on the homework at the end. So if we can do the questions and then we take the comments and yeah.
Perfect.
Whatever you feel.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm hearing I have an echo, and I feel like I can hear it myself.
I can't hear it.
Okay. So one of our participants was asking, she shared that she does yoga.
Yep.
And do you feel that you need to write down, you know, the intention piece, the I am, the where I want to be in a journal, or can you verbalize it as well?
I personally, and personally, one from my experience and two from the research that I've written. And if you go in and you look for research on efficacy of journalism or journaling, you see that there is a huge amount of research showing that the process that we went through of writing down, journaling, that free flow, letting thoughts flow out of you onto paper and then reviewing them is highly powerful in and of itself. And I don't think you get the same immediacy as you do, you know, when you're just verbalizing, because I think things get away from you. Now, every person is different, but let me tell you, there's a huge amount of research there. And in fact, we'll share, remind me on that one, Ava, we'll share some of the research so you can see journaling is even good for the immune system. But I would suggest you write it down, keep it in a single journal, put it away, come back to it again. When you're filling it up the next time, read back those things. You get insights just from continually allowing yourself just to get your stream of consciousness onto paper.
Perfect. Thank you. I definitely have an echo, folks. I'm very sorry. I just have one other question for Derek. Can mindfulness help for deep sleep, as well as sometimes we find it difficult to sleep as the mind is busy wandering?
I notice, and again, if you want to check this out, there's a lot of research that shows that the body scanning process is a fantastic way of distracting one from the cyclic thoughts that often result in keeping us awake at night. And I can speak from my personal experience of that for somebody who has had for many years very broken sleep. Now, some nights, I'm like everybody else, some nights you get a night when you just can't seem to sleep. But the body scanning is great because it settles you down, it relaxes you, and it stops you from becoming an additional source of anxiety, which stops you from sleeping, which gets you anxious, which stops you from sleeping. So I would say, one, the fact that it quietens some of the dialogue over time that's going on in your mind helps. But the body scan at night, when you're lying there, just doing a gentle body scan, bringing attention systematically up to the body, is really useful. And usually what happens with me is I wake from having been halfway through a body scan or partway through a body scan. But at least worst case is you're chilled. You're not anxious about it. So yeah, it's really good for that.
Perfect. Thank you. I normally can only get to my elbows and I'm asleep. It is one thing I've suffered with problem sleeping for years. And Deiric actually introduced the body scan to me years and years ago. And it was the first thing that actually worked for me, aside from a nice cup of tea. So thank you. That's all the questions I have, folks. So if you have some more, chat them in the Q&A box now. And I think my echo's gone. I think it's gone. And Deiric can get to them. So I'll let him go on to the homework. And if you have more questions, chat them in there and we'll address them. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Aoife. So again, you're already in the group. Anybody who's just joined, and a few people have joined this week, in the group, there will, after tomorrow, be 3 recorded sessions, 6 recorded practices. In fact, it's 7 recorded practices, I beg your pardon, 2 bonus recordings that may go up, and a handout with 7 practices. So we're putting everything into that group because it's a much more reliable way of getting stuff to you. There's such a kerfuffle right now about GDPR that email has become a really challenging environment. It'll settle down when people become comfortable with it, but systems are being very, very savage on mails from outside. Homework. I hate the word homework, but so I use it tongue in cheek. This is entirely your choice. You can come along and you can just interact with this program in an academic way, or you can choose to get in some of the practices. Here's a practice that really gets people's eyes wide open when we do it in a live face-to-face program. Here's the basics of it. Instead of focusing on your breath, focus on someone you're talking to. When your child tonight, when you go home and you're sitting down with your child or you're sitting down with your wife and they're talking to you, and even though you're tired, set the intention that I'm going to pay attention to this next person who's talking to me, and rest your attention on what they're saying without following where it's going or the story. Just rest your attention on listening to them, and again, noticing when you've been distracted, and bringing the attention back. That is meditation, just the same as breath meditation, just the same as brushing your teeth, and people love it. We did a book a few years ago on leadership charisma. Listening was the single most charismatic act a leader can make. So for next time, this is when I say to you, I really think you need to start doing some practice to get the maximum out of this. You don't have to, but you'll get the max out of it. So here's what I suggest. Right now, set an intention. You're going to do 1 dedicated practice daily, even on the weekdays, and that might be body scan one day, attention to breath the next day. You might do the visualization one the next day, whatever it happens to be. Just pick one and figure out for you, what's the best time for you to do it? First thing in the morning, get up a few minutes early. Is it last thing at night before you go to bed? Is it when you come in the evening? Work it out so it's not putting additional stress on you. But try to work through the body scan or attention to breath, and just any fixed practice, and even 5 minutes or 4 minutes or 3 minutes or 1 minute is better than none. And then pick some of these integrated practices, some of these real-time practices. So consider, if you weren't here last week, go back into the recording and have a look at the purposeful pause with the potential project timer, or use the teeth and look at paying attention to the sensations of brushing your teeth, noticing when you've lost attention, bringing your attention back, or showering or shaving or whatever it happens to be, or mindful listening. Listening is one of the most impactful, engaging things that we can do as leaders, or as lovers, as fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, etc. So please Set an intention just to try one dedicated practice and to bring attention to some part of your everyday experience. Next time in session 4, we're going to look at an open awareness practice. So we saw in the first week, we started talking about how people had no focus, and focus and attention had deteriorated, and we started working on a practice that's designed to keep you focused on a spot. But what if your mind starts spinning on a spot that you want to spin on? You get caught in a negative thought and you're just spinning around and around and around. Open awareness is a great way of working with that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about becoming more empathetic. I'll show you some research next week that shows that empathetic people and empathetic organizations are dramatically, measurably, in an objective fashion, more successful than non-empathetic folks. And we're going to do the first step in moving towards being an empathetic leader. And then on those days when the wheels come off your day, my mom used to say, bad things happen in threes. So on the day when number 4 has just happened and you feel like banging your head or somebody else's head off the wall, I'm going to show you a 1-minute practice for getting yourself back on track, for getting you back on ground and say, okay, what do I do next? So thank you, folks. Thank you very much. I can stay on as long as you like if there are any more questions, but please share your insights, share your experiments, share what's working and what's not working for you in the group. You're going to learn much more from one another than you ever learned from me. I'm just getting the process started. So unless there are other questions, I am good to go.
I have one quick one, Deiric. Actually, I think it'd be useful for the group, as I know I've experienced this before, and I'm sure you have as well. Getting your colleagues to the mindful land of leadership. I shared back with Jose that from my personal experience, you cannot make someone adopt a behavior unless they're willing to commit. However, you can encourage the conversation into your culture. So me personally, in the past, I've shared books, DVDs, recordings, links, and I think when others start to see how it was working in my life and how it was helping me, then they were more likely to even be open to the concept of mindfulness. What are your thoughts?
Two things, and it's a great question. Thanks for sharing it. One is, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. So just by modeling how you become more calm, more collected, more together, more joyful, and so on and so forth, people will notice. People do notice these things. That's the first thing. But don't go in and start preaching. Oh, for God's sakes, don't go in and start telling people, hey, look, listen, you got to sit down. Hey, put your hands in your, start breathing. You're going to freak them. You're going to freak them out. People who are not used to it, people with my color hair, you're going to freak them out. Okay? You need to bring to people who haven't been exposed to it, you need to bring them to it gently. Here's my suggestion. In an environment, if you're the boss particularly, but even as just, one of the troops, when you go into a meeting, suggest at the start of a meeting, can we just take 1 minute to arrive? 1 minute where we just disconnect from everything that's going on, close down our laptops, and just set an intention for what we want to achieve out of this meeting, and then just go quiet for 1 minute, just silence, and watch the impact it has on people. And somebody's going to say, what's that all about? Mm-hmm. And that's your entree to start. But just start with that low impact, 1 minute, just a minute to arrive. It's a wonderful approach.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you, folks.
Any other questions coming in right now? So I think we're good for today.
Great. Well, folks, thank you again for coming on live. Please share the outcome of your experiments. Share your best ideas. Share the articles that you find on this stuff. Go and look this up. Don't trust me. Share it all into the group, and that way we learn more. So thank you very much. You have a fantastic week, and we'll see you back. Oh, by the way, we will be mailing you apologies, but the first session will, because I'm going to be on a plane, unfortunately, will take place at this time Tuesday next, rather than the following day, Wednesday. And the second one will take place on Wednesday at the usual time. But don't try to absorb that. Just be aware there's a change in timing. AIFA is going to be in touch about that. Later, folks.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.